Okay, so here's part two, and I'm going to read like this because I realized that looking down, like I was, just looked not too good. So it also affected the sound of my microphone. So this is on page 668 in my leather-bound edition, and it's when Theon is describing eating, which backs up my his teeth are broken point. The horse meat was too tough for the ruins of Theon's teeth. His attempts to chew gave him excruciating pain. So he mashed up the neeps and onions up together with the flat of his dagger and made a meal of that. Then cut the horse up very small, sucked on each piece, and spat it out. Theon has a dagger, and I think that's important to note because a dagger can be used to cut horse meat or cut a bitch. And Yellow Dick was definitely a bitch, and I think that Theon could have easily cut that kid up. No problem. Alrighty, so going back to page 669 with the cloaked, hooded man. The man looked and laughed. I leave you to him, then. Theon trudged through the snow until his arms and legs were caked with snow and his hands and feet had gone numb from the cold, and then climbed onto the battlements with the inner wall again. Up here, 100 feet high, a little wind was blowing, stirring up the snow. All the candles had filled up. Theon had to punch through a wall of snow to make a hole, only to find that he could not see beyond the moat. Of the outer wall, nothing remained but a vague shadow and a few dim lights flowing in the dark. So it never really says that the man leaves, which I find interesting. And to go back to my point about the horse meat, Theon at this point is extremely malnourished. He can't eat very well, which I think also might cause him to hallucinate. I have a few more quotes from this one, and then we can go on to Clash of Kings. This is page 674, and I'm basically just going to read you the entire page, so here we go. Come to pray to the old gods. But at this hour Theon Greyjoy found he had it all to himself. And in the heart of the wood, the weirwood waited with its knowing red eyes. Theon stopped by the edge of the pool and bowed his head before its carved red face. Even here he could hear the drumming. Boom, doom, boom, doom, boom, doom, boom, doom, like distant thunder. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. The night was wildness, the snow drifting straight down at the cold of a cold black sky. The leaves of the heart tree were rustling his name. Theon, they seemed to whisper. Theon. The old gods, he thought. They know me. They know my name. I was Theon of House Greyjoy. I was a ward of Eddard Stark, a friend and brother to his children. Please, he fell to his knees. A sword. That's all I ask. Let me die as Theon, not as Reek. Tears trickled down his cheeks, impossibly warm. It was Ironborn. A son. a son of Pike of the islands. A leaf drifted down from above, brushed his brow, and landed in the pool. It floated in the water, red, five-fingered, like a bloody hand. "Bran," the tree murmured. "They know, the gods know, they saw what I did." For one strange moment, it seems as if it were Bran's face carved into the pale trunk of the weirwood, staring down at him with eyes red, wise and sad. Bran's ghost, he thought. But that was madness. Why should Bran want to hunt him? He had been fond of the boy. He had never done him any harm. It was not Bran we killed. It was not Rickon. They were only the miller's sons, from the mill by the Acorn Water. I had to have two heads, or else they would have mocked me, laughed at me. A voice said, "Who are you talking to?" And, yeah. Holly has once again made an appearance, and I want to read you one last quote from page 675 in the leather-bound edition. "And what would be so wrong with that? Touch me," he said. "Kill me." There was more despair than defiance in his voice. "Go on. Do me the way you did the others. Yellow Dick and the rest." It was you. Holly laughed. "How could it be us? We're women. Teats and cunnies. You're to be fucked, not feared." While they could easily be messing with Theon's head a little bit, I still stand by the fact that this is Theon seeing the ghost of his former self. So, to further back up some points, and what I find interesting from the quotes I just read, they actually kind of contradict a little bit of what is said in A Clash of Kings. But I think the thing with Theon is there's a lot of admiration that he has for these children and the kids and the Starks in general. But because he's a Greyjoy, I think there's a certain level of conflict within him, and not to mention that Ned basically used him as a political tool. Ned, especially in the books, you see him reflecting on his children with a lot of affection, which is rather understandable. I mean, the man is a father. But when he reflects on Theon, it's always, how can I use Theon? He's my ward, I have protected him, I have trained him, but there's this level of distance that he must keep because as Theon is a ward, he might have to execute him one day. So, for A Clash of Kings, this is from the first Theon chapter, and it starts on page 164. Obedient to his wishes, the Merriam beat her way down past the point with her sails snapping and her captain cursing in the wind, and his crew and the follies of high-born lordlings. Theon drew the hood of his cloak up against the spray, and looked at home. Now, I think this is important to note because Theon has always thought of Pike as some sort of home, and it was his home at one point. But this is the last time we see Theon as Theon, the real Theon. And he's wearing a cloak, a hooded cloak. And this hooded figure is eye level with him. And not many people are as tall or short as Theon. So there wouldn't be a way for Theon to be eye level with them. And Theon wasn't afraid. And it's important to note that in the novels, Theon is almost unrecognizable as Theon. His hair has gone gray. He has no teeth. Well, he has teeth, but they're broken. And it's if you looked at Theon here and Theon in A Dance with Dragons, they're not the mirror image of each other. Okay, so now I have one more quote before we get going with this. Or no, a few more. Page 174 of A Clash of Kings. Nephew Theon, the priest replied. Your lord father bid me to fetch you, come. In a moment, uncle. He turned back to the Merriam. My things, he commanded the captain. Okay, so I just wanted to read that quote off just because, just to give you a backstory, this is Theon's uncle, the priest. So, 175. His uncle had left the horses tied up in front of the Waterside Inn. Then they reached them. He turned to Theon. Tell me true, nephew. Do you pray to the wolf gods now? Theon seldom prayed at all. But that was not something you confessed to a priest. Even your father's own brother. Ned Stark prayed to a tree. No, I care nothing for Stark gods. Good. Kneel. The ground was all stones and mud. Uncle, kneel. Or are you too proud now? A lordling of the Green Lands, come among us. So, yeah. The Ironborn don't really trust Theon, and the Starks don't really trust Theon. I don't even think Theon trusts himself at this point. Okay, so the next quote is from page 177 in A Clash of Kings. Lord Eddard tried to play the father from time to time, but Theon had always remained the man who'd brought blood and fire to Pike and taken from his home. As a boy, he had lived in fear of the Stark's stern face and great dark sword. His wife was, if anything, even more distant and suspicious. As for their children, the younger ones had been newling babies for most of his years at Winterfell. Only Robb and his base-born half-brother Jon Snow had been old enough to be worth his notice. The bastard was a sullen boy, quick to a sense, a sight, jealous of Theon's high birth and Robb's regard for him. For Robb himself, Theon did have a certain affection, as for a younger brother, but it would be best not to mention that in Pike. It would seem the old wars were still being fought. That ought to be no surprise to him. The Iron Islands lived in the past. The present was too hard and bitter to be borne. So yeah, Theon, while I think he wants to keep up this front that he is Ironborn, he never really allowed himself to be a Stark because at any moment, Ned Stark could have cut the kid's head off. Anyway, guys, that's all for part 2. Sorry it was a little long, but until next time, guys, I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.